independence. Joining us now is the man who gave birth to the modern liberty movement. It's Ron Paul, former Texas congressman and presidential candidate, and former OBGYN. He's the reason a lot of you are here tonight. Congressman, welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to be with you.
It's so nice to have you. And how interesting that there's a Gallup poll. It says, in your opinion, this is the question, which of the following will be the biggest threat to the country in the future? Big business, big labor, or big government? 72% of Americans say it's big government. That's up 20 points since 2009. Why do you think there's been such a big jump in just 4 years?
I think the failure of government is all around us. I guess we can't get too excited and we better not get complacent, but it's great news. But, of course, these are views that many of us, including you, probably have shared for a long time. But I think, maybe Obamacare is such a transparent failure of big government, and foreign policy is such a failure and intrusion of our liberties. NSA and all this spying, it's all around us, and it's a failure. And I think it's really great news that people are starting to recognize this, because I don't think we can get the replacement there until people give up what we have. The Soviet system collapsed on its own weight because it was a failed system. But I believe this intrusion on our civil liberties, the foreign policy, and the Keynesian economics is totally failed. And people are starting to recognize it. So the job now we have is to replace it with something. What do we offer? And that's why I'm delighted that you're on a program now offering some of the ideas that can replace all this government intrusion where government's going to be taking care of us all the time and making us safe. So we have to, it's a whole new paradigm. I mean, we have to look at this differently. But this is where I'm encouraged, because so many young people are looking very carefully at this philosophy of liberty.
And sorry, Camille, people often thought that you were a Cassandra, that you were ringing this false alarm bell, but an overwhelming majority of Americans have come over to your side. Do you think it's your message that started this, or is it people who have just been hurt so badly by the NSA, by the ACA, by the other alphabet programs that it now make what you were saying seem perfectly rational?
Well, it'd be neat if I could claim all the credit, but that is not the case. I think things are coming together, because the freedom movement, which I was very much aware of and learning from, we started in the modern day freedom movement was started in the 1950s, especially by Leonard Read, and it's been developing a long time since then. And that's been going on, but the failure of the system, it coincided with my running for president in 2008 and then again in 12. The failure was there, the economic failure was there, the wars had continued to go on, and so it came together. So I was in a position to sort of be a figurehead of sorts, but it really came about because of the groundwork laid over many decades and the failure of the current system. So that is the reason we have this grand opportunity to fill the void.
And Congressman Paul, we can return to the survey quickly. That 72% number is certainly very, very interesting. But we even see the trend among Democrats and independents. Independents are at 71%, but Democrats, surprisingly, are at 56%. And it's interesting that at the same time that there is this skepticism about government, we don't necessarily see the same sort of trend in big business. It's only 36% of Democrats are saying that big business is the problem that we're facing. You mentioned the NSA program before. We talked about drones a little earlier in the program. Do you suspect that all of this is contributing to the trend among Democrats and independents as well?
Yeah, and a lot of people thought what I was trying to do was reform the Republican Party. And I tell them, I said, if there's a revolution going on, and we do talk about a philosophic revolution, I said it's not supposed to be in the Republican Party to reform the Republican Party. It has to be pervasive. It has to be independents. It has to be Democrats. And I get a lot of calls around the world because there is certainly something very big going on. So, no, I think it's philosophic, and because of the great problems that we have, that we're seeing this tremendous response.
We know that the government has gone too far. It's obvious. The numbers are there. Any sort of rational combing over of the data will show you that we have gone broke as a country. But there is an extreme wing of liberalism that thinks we haven't gone far enough. This populist liberalism. How do you make sense of the de Blasios and the Elizabeth Warrens of the world who say that the government needs to give an even bigger handout?
Well, they're going to hang on there for a long time, just as the neoconservatives who think that perpetual war is not only the way you make the world safe for democracy, but it's also good for jobs. So there will be those, but now I think they're being marginalized. But over the years, I tried real hard to work with Democrats and people like Dennis Kucinich and others and Ron Wyden on civil liberties and foreign policy. So I think we're bringing a different coalition together. So I thought it was a great thing when we saw that vote on the potential, they never got to the vote, this idea of bombing Syria. And the people expressed themselves, but it wasn't the leadership of either party. It wasn't Boehner and it was Boehner and Pelosi that wanted it, but the people didn't want it. So it was a coalition of grassroots Republicans and Democrats. I think that's the biggest news going, and that's why the independent approach to this, independent-minded, libertarian, whatever, just so that we're away from this idea that the Republicans and Democrats are actually really fighting against each other. They fight over power, but not over issues. They both endorse the wars and the Federal Reserve and the deficits, and they're both at fault. But I see some very healthy things going on today.